Watching a mafia family's rise to power and their demise in Godfather is always fascinating. Reading through the adventures of a hero in a fantastical setting is a wonderful experience. Great stories have always had the power to immerse us in someone else's life. Whenever we go through their experience, there's always the same question that comes up. What would I do if I were in their place? Mentally imagining being that mafia member, that hero, is a different experience entirely, and we wonder about it all the time. We imagine what we would do in their place. We start plotting our own decisions. This is where video games distinguish themselves from every other storytelling medium thanks to its interactive nature. All of a sudden, the decisions no longer belong to Michael Corleone or Frodo. They are our decisions. We decide where to go, who to trust, how to approach a fight, and sometimes even how the story itself unfolds. Every success feels earned because it was our decisions and actions that led us here. Every mistake hurts because we made it ourselves. Video games don't just ask us to witness a great story, they invite us to be the star of that story. We transition from an outsider observing the story into an active participant. Or at least they make us feel like we do. That feeling I'm trying to catch does not appear out of nowhere. Imagine this scenario for me for a second. You are walking through a corridor that ends with an open door. There are a bunch of ammo, healing items, and other types of consumables laying around. You stop running, you go over all the ammo and collect whatever you can. You start reloading each gun one after another. You equip your favorite weapon. You take a second to check your health. You use your healing bandages, potions, collect new ones from the ground, and after all of that, you slowly enter through the door. Suddenly, the music shifts and it gets louder. The door slams behind us, and our companion calls out something akin to "they are coming" or "it's a trap." What do you do now? You don't panic, you are not surprised. You quickly scan the room. There are some safe covers, there are red barrels around the room, obvious paths for enemies to rush from. Before even the first enemy shows up, you have your favorite weapon in your hand, hidden behind a cover, and plotting on which barrel to shoot first. But here's the funny part. All of us knew this was coming, but how? Nobody in the game told, shit, all this loot means a hard fight is ahead of us. There wasn't a tutorial section that taught us lots of loot before a door equals big fight. Yet, almost every experienced player immediately understood what the room meant when they saw all the loot. As every time we picked up a game, we were practicing a language naturally just like we do with our native tongues. With each game we played, we became masters of it. Thankfully, the gaming scene has a name for it already: gaming literacy. It is the silent, ongoing dialogue between the developer and the player. The developer has created an art for you to experience, but you have no idea about it. So, they need to hold your hand a little so you can have the best possible experience. It is why every red barrel means explosion. It is why yellow paint over an edge means it's climbable. It is why in a dark corridor you should follow the light. The last one is survival instinct, but still. Developers rely on this literacy to guide us without ever needing to break immersion with a giant neon sign. They guide us through level design, and we acknowledge through our controllers. But acknowledging that guidance brings up another concept that is important here. Let's get back to that room. We took cover, favorite weapon in hand, ready to shoot, and you felt in control of the moment. You could also just rush into the middle and embrace the chaos of the moment. You were given choices and you have made decisions. This is what we call player agency in effect. You were given a possibility to make meaningful choices in the game, and the game responded to you. However, within those meaningful choices lies an interesting developer trick. Even though you have options on how to go through this encounter, you cannot do anything else but go through it. The door behind you has closed, you can't escape. The next door won't open till you kill all the enemies, so you can't rush through. Because the player agency we discussed has two separate realms: mechanical agency and narrative agency. Mechanical agency is what you are given in that room. It is the freedom to decide how to play, Do you use your guns and be methodical, or get your sword out and go mad with it? The mechanical agency asks you, how do you solve this problem? Meanwhile, narrative agency is the freedom to meaningfully influence the direction of the story. Your decisions carry consequences that shape future events, alter relationships, close off possibilities, and ultimately determine how the narrative unfolds. Basically, narrative agency asks you which story do you want to create. I know, you know, everyone who has just seen the thumbnail knows this video is going to tie into Bioshock at one point or another. So, to fortify the difference between the two different agencies, I want to share the moment how the developers define their approach on it.
What motivated the idea of having so much choice in the way you could sort of play through this game? What was it to give the player a better sense of authorship over the experience, or what was driving that?
I've always liked the idea of giving the player a lot of agency in terms of their play style and experimenting with the play style and trying different things and seeing what worked and didn't work and interacting with the environment. The notion that it's sort of a playground that you get to play around with and imprint your own desire on was great, because I think we were more skeptical about being able to do that with story at the time. In fact, so much to the point where that became almost like a joke. That becomes the meta joke of the game, of how little agency you have in your story. But agency in terms of how you play the experience and how you load out your weapons and how you interact with the environment, as compared to most shooters at the time, where basically like you can shoot them with a shotgun or shoot them with the the pistol. That was really important to us. So we spent a lot of time trying to make the world react in a way that you would expect and hope it to react when you tried something.
As humans, we do have the desire to shape how stories unfold. Within most linear story-driven games, most often than not, we do not have that much of a narrative agency, yet these games need to be interactive and we need to feel in control. The trade-off the developers and the player we partake in is that, in these games, developers overwhelm us with the mechanical agency and several paths that lead to the same narrative ending. And we accept, within the constraints of video games, this is good enough to feel in control. We do not really complain how we were not given as much as narrative agency we would have liked, or that they are trying to play us, making us feel in control with mechanical agency, because we do understand their constraints. It is not really possible to code away something with unlimited options and endings granting us the complete narrative agency. So we do give our time, attention, money, and our agency to the developers, seeking a good experience instead. It's a simple transaction of goods, and no one understands that transaction better than game developers themselves.
Part of Bioshock's lasting legacy, of course, are the little sisters and this moral choice that presented itself to the player. Everyone became a water cooler conversation about, like, well, did you save them? Did you harvest them? That concept, Ken, was that something that came about early in development, or that binary choice? When did that come into the game?
I don't remember when. I mean, we had the concept of them being protected, but I can't remember when you actually
certainly
chose.
wasn't. When there were slugs, it was not meaningful. I think there was.
Do you salt it? Do you not salt it?
There were resources that you could get, but there was no choice there, right? The choice was, do I want to fight the Big Daddy or not?
Yeah.
I think once we got into the realm of they have to be empathetic, the player has to have some feeling towards them, which you're not going to get from slugs.
Right.
Think about what they did here. Originally, the little sisters were pitched as sea slugs, or big daddies were just a bigger enemy with more loot. But why would you go out of your way to fight a big daddy when you can gather the same money fighting a dozen normal enemies? Or would harvesting a sea slug leave much of an impression? To make the mechanical choice carry weight, they had to manipulate our psychological incentives. By changing them into vulnerable little girls and tying them directly to the game's primary currency, Adam, they turned a simple mechanical resource system into a moral economy. They engineered a system where our gameplay greed fought directly against our human empathy. And once they proved they could manipulate our gameplay decisions through economic incentives, they set their sights on a much bigger target, manipulating our blind narrative obedience. Which brings us to the final piece: social contract. As players, we know we are essentially in a theme park going from one ride to another. We know there are invisible walls, locked doors, and a predetermined story we have to follow, but we willingly sign an unspoken agreement with the developer. We agree to suspend our disbelief, follow the objective marker, and trust our guides. We let the developers decide where we have mechanical or narrative agency in exchange for a specially crafted, entertaining experience. But what happens when a developer decides to weaponize these against us? What happens when a game uses our blind trust to spring a trap not on the character but on the player themselves? Bioshock's twist has been praised for its meta-commentary and for its excellent reveal. However, its greatest trick isn't the phrase, "would you kindly?" Its greatest trick is convincing us that this is just another video game. Everything we do is ordinary gaming experience. Bioshock pulls off the ultimate bait and switch. It leans so perfectly into the social contract and our expectations due to our gaming literacy. It utilizes many accustomed norms to their absolute core to pull the wool all over our eyes. The developers do this in a way that it masks its true intentions up until the point they are ready to gut punch the player. But the key is, how do they do it so successfully? We are here to experience the feeling of a cyberpunk dystopia or post-apocalyptic ruins of a world. We would like to fully immerse ourselves in these stories, yet there's one significant issue every developer needs to find a solution for. We are an outsider to this world, and we have no idea about what's going on and where to go, when to go, how to go. If we are not guided enough, getting lost would break that immersion as we would be frustrated with the level design. If we are guided more than enough, then the guide would be frustrating as it would cross the line and become annoyingly too much. That is why we accept invisible walls, closed off doors, and many more stuff. Another concept that developers use constantly is side characters that I call guide characters. They are there to help us safely travel through their respective alien worlds like a guide dog. Sometimes they are a mentor, sometimes they are a squad leader, sometimes they are simply the first friendly voice you hear in an unfamiliar world. Khan in Metro, Captain Price in Call of Duty, many of the side characters in Cyberpunk, and so many more. Just because we need a guide does not mean we will accept any guide character just like that. They need to be created in a manner that we do find them acceptable enough to listen to them. They must know their place and not become overly guiding. They need to be interesting at any level. It's a hard thing to balance, and if you miss the balance, it's gonna ruin the player experience. Therefore, it is the developer's side of the bargain to make it all make sense. They need to convince us with something so that we do follow these characters through thick and thin. Every developer tries their own way to convince us. Some make their character charming, charismatic, and lovable. Some characters do have an incredibly humane and ethical reason to be there and seek help, all of which makes it easy to follow for most people. For the experienced players, it is what you are supposed to do anyways. Developers of Bioshock created the epitome of such a character. Atlas is the first person we hear from after surviving a plane crash. He walks us through the unwelcoming introduction to Rapture. Mechanically, Atlas functions exactly like the countless guide characters before him. He introduces new mechanics, points us towards objectives, and naturally teaches us how to navigate an unfamiliar world. Nothing about him feels unusual, because we have already met this character dozens of times in other games. This is just normal. In fact, it is exactly like what we would expect from any other game. Yet, developers does not stop there as well. Atlas is an empathetic person who is charming, who is desperately trying to save their family in a city that went haywire. He is trapped in the same nightmare you are in with his family. His only goal is saving his family at that moment. In a city that is obsessed with ideology, ambition, and power, Atlas's concerns are comfortably humane. He is scared, desperate, and most importantly, sounds genuine. He openly asks for your trust, and even though mechanically that's not a choice, mentally you do trust him. And to be fair, for a huge amount of time, that trust pays off. Throughout the game, especially within the first initial missions, Atlas does help you out significantly till you find your footing in this alien place.
it. Goddamn splicers.
Meanwhile, Ryan is enigmatic, paranoid control freak trying to get rid of you with every tool he has in his arsenal. He demands answers and obedience. He mocks us, threatens us, and repeatedly tries to have us killed before we have even met him. When the only two sane people you interact with are these two, who else can you prefer but Atlas?
Listen, I've got a family. I need to get them out of here. But the splicers have cut me off from them. If you can reach them in Neptune's bounty, then maybe, just maybe. I know you must feel like the unluckiest man in the world right now. But you're the only hope I'll ever see my wife and child again. Go to Neptune's bounty. Find my family, please. Oh, Christ! You're trapped! Gonna try to override the exit from here.
So tell me, friend, which one of the bitches sent you? The KGB wolf or the CIA jackal? Here's the news. Rapture isn't some sunken ship for you to plunder. And Andrew Ryan isn't a giddy socialite who can be slapped around by government muscle. And with that, farewell, or до свидания, Jerry.
The tone difference between them is insane. Are you really going to side with the character who is trying to kill you and clearly hostile to you, or the one who is empathetic to you and tries everything to protect you within this madness? The choice seems incredibly clear, right? Mentally, you have made the decision, and trusting Atlas feels only natural. To our gamer brains, Atlas is instantly recognizable. He's another Jackie Wallace introducing us to Night City, another Joe Barbara introducing Vito to Mafia life, another Captain Price leading us through the battlefield, another Khan guiding us through the metro. We have learned that these characters exist to help us. They are the developer's voice inside the game world, gently guiding us towards the experience they have carefully crafted. Years of gaming literacy have taught us not only to accept these characters, but actively rely on them. This is what makes Atlas so perfect. Our gaming literacy tells us exactly who he is. He is just another ride-or-die companion that is there to show the ropes or move the storyline when necessary. To be honest, up until Bioshock, not many decided to weaponize this archetype against us and manipulate us in a way to specifically shock us later. The lengths the developers went to achieve that manipulation and the shock value is actually larger than you would have believed. To see how calculated this manipulation really was, we don't even have to guess, we can hear it directly from the people who built the trap.
A lot of specifics that can change. For instance, Atlas used to have a southern drawl.
Right.
And then, we recast to the Irish.
And we actually cast an actor, wrote the lines, did the whole thing, and realized that people hated that character and distrusted him from the first start. So we had to rewrite him, recast him, redo everything.
Yeah.
When playtesters heard that original drawl and those initial dialogues, their instincts kicked in. Players instinctively refused to sign the social contract. They didn't feel like they were listening to a helpful guide. They felt like they were being set up. The developers realized that if the player was already second-guessing the guide character in the first hour, the ultimate gut punch at the end of the game wouldn't work. They couldn't just tweak a few lines, they had to completely rebuild Atlas from ground up with one specific goal: engineering absolute trust.
You guys have talked about the idea of Atlas, the voice actor changing, and it was, I guess, very important that you nailed that actor, right? And you trusted that actor until there was sort of the Fontaine reveal and sort of understanding that.
Yes, trust was everything there, right? And so there was something about either the actor or the writing or the accent that just people immediately said, this guy's no good.
Right.
When the first Atlas we had, because you have to trust this guy, and if you don't, there's no trust, there's no, there's no punch in the gut. I think we've really focused on making him have personal stakes in the story as well. That he had his family trapped. Even, of course, it was all fiction, right? But he had skin in the game. He sort of spoke to you as a friend, and especially because the whole world was so hostile to you. I think it took a while to get that exactly right.
It is not mentioned what was not working and what was changed aside from the accent. However, everything was replaced with genuine modest friendly behavior. However, we needed more to buy into his motivation, something deeper. So, the developers have him the most globally relatable stake possible, a family in danger.
Listen, I've got a family. I need to get them out of here. But the splicers have cut me off from them. If you can reach them in Neptune's bounty, then maybe, just maybe. I know you must feel like the unluckiest man in the world right now. But you're the only hope I'll ever see my wife and child again. Go to Neptune's bounty. Find my family, please.
When Atlas asks you to help him save his wife and child from this underwater nightmare, he stops being just a video game tutorial voice explaining how to equip a weapon or hack a drone. He becomes a human being in pain. By rewriting his dialogue to sound like a desperate friend rather than an authoritative guide, they hacked our empathy. They knew our gamer brains would look at the hostile and arrogant Andrew Ryan and immediately run toward the warm, friendly guy who just wants to save his family. They weaponized our empathy and our years of relying on guide characters to blindfold us. We happily handed our trust, followed every yellow objective marker because we were led by a character that is almost too hard to defy in gaming. So why did this manipulation succeed so widely? Why did players upload a game that actively stripped away their narrative agency and mocked their blind obedience?
Maybe
That
not
theme
the
goes on
specifics, and
forever.
maybe it's the Excelsior, or you may be talking about the Excelsior
yeah,
time,
yeah.
but the idea that you don't really have choice, and exactly like you said, you played through how many video games, and everybody's game is going to end the same way. You're going to kill these people, you're going to pass through these checkpoints, and you think you have a choice, but ultimately the only real choice is to stop playing the game.
He's completely right. It works because it exposes a hard truth about the medium we usually ignore. In almost every linear game, we blindly follow instructions and end up at the exact same destination. We crave real narrative agency, but we rarely ever get it. Yet flipping the table over to show every one of us all of this is act of manipulation is a massive gamble.
Have something that seemed like a non-thing and then came back at you like a freight train later on it was there from pretty early.
Sit, would you kindly? Stand, would you kindly? Run! Stop! Turn. A man chooses. A slave obeys.
So that phrase evolved, but talk about that, the sort of meta-narrative of, being in a game, thinking that you have a sense of choice and making these decisions, but then obviously realizing that the player ultimately didn't have choice or was conditioned in a way that they would react to that. That was, sort of a new idea for a game. Where did that come from on your side, kind of? Was there sort of a deeper sort of, meaning behind it?
No, look, I think I was always interested in the concept, whether it's Oedipus, not to get too pointy-headed here, but Oedipus sort of thinking he has, I'm going to leave, this city and go to another city because there's been this prophecy about me and I'm going to avoid my fate and I'm in complete control, and then finding out he's not in control at all, to the Manchurian Candidate, which is a story I love about, somebody who you find out is just a puppet, living a life of a man, and Fight Club. I always love those kind of stories about who am I and what is my agency in this world, because look, we struggle. I think everybody struggles that. How much we really have control over, and how much is our boss or parents or whatever telling us what to do. So that seemed like a natural thing for story, and because it came from movies, that idea a lot, and plays, I don't think it was there was a lot of, it hadn't been explored in games really, and games are particularly interesting because games...
Because you feel like you are interacting with choice, yeah.
And you're really being, most games, especially at the time, you're really just being railroaded down a corridor. It's very easy to underestimate gamers, and I think probably I did a little of my own underestimation there, that it would be a little too pointy-headed for people, but people seem to really engage, probably because it spoke to an experience they had, a struggle as a gamer they've always had, which is like, I want to control, but how much control do I really have in this game?
Too scholarly? Perhaps, but Harvey could not love it. They understood a common desire every player had at one point or another. They wanted to address it in a daring way by putting it on the nose in an amazing setting and story. But that leaves us with one lingering question. If Bioshock became legendary by showing our lack of agency and creating a gut-punching twist out of it, how would it feel when a developer actually gives us both mechanical and narrative agency?
That's strange. I feel drained by this place. Stilton's sealed off from the rest of the district.